Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another broadcast of In the Circle Ministries, our YouTube virtual ministry here, where we take things and put them up under the microscope. We make our plural eyes singular. That way, the body is full of light. Um, so, also with that concept is we take things and put them up under a microscope. You know, up under a microscope, you can see things that you couldn't see with the corneal or the physical eye. It magnifies things so as you can see things that you normally wouldn't see, or the things that some may say under the surface. And these are the things that we want to deal with because those are the really underlying issues of everything that's going on. Dealing with those underlying things, we can really solve a bunch of issues in our life, or we can grow into our self mastery and deal with certain truths and elevate from there. A lot of times we deal with things we don't really put things up under the microscope, or we don't look at things through our day-to-day life through the microscope. A lot of times we deal with it as in a normal corneal eye set, and a lot of times we do what I would say like the outside of surgeries, most doctors do. They treat the symptoms. They don't really deal with the core issue. But nevertheless, that's what we do here in into the self mastery, and I feel like that's one of the key and very important vital steps of all that we do. Make sure we put it up under the microscope so that we can have truth, and from that truth, the truth does all the work. It's whether we accept it or not. But anyway, today we're going to be stepping into the civics. So before we get into that, do know that everything that we talk about is about spiritual. It's spiritual, entertainment, and for educational purpose only. None of it is to be construed as legal advice and should not be construed as legal advice. And if you're in need of that, then seek those that are lawyers or whatever. But that's not what we're trying to be here. We just share information and our experiences. And so, up under the civics, we're dealing with a subject today we're going to call, well, everyone that's maybe aware of it, called the right to travel. And it's a big thing. I got into a lot of this information in 2018, done a lot of processes, paid for a lot of processes, read a lot of processes, got the information, and a lot of it ended up to nothing. Um, you know, it's just like a lot of things that we deal with. So we talk about on this channel too about religion, the dogma, or the doctrination, or things of that nature. You fall in love with the story. You fall in love with the whole concept of whatever it may be in that organization, that religion, or whatever that's given to you by the parents, or most time by the parents, or it's a generational thing. Your family has always been Catholic. Your family has always been Christian. Your family always been Buddhist. Depending on what nationality and things of those natures. And also, some people may never knowed about it, and begin to search and was told by somebody else. Maybe someone told them the story of Jesus, or someone introduced them into the Brotherhood, or the Muslims, or into whatever it may be, whatever organization or religion that is. And then you get your initiation, then you get your script, and you get everything that that organization has to offer you in order for you to attain those things or whatever. So there's there's a lot of stuff that people find out new information, and I was one in the beginning. I did too, but I would say the thing about it is learning to read and understand stuff for yourself. Um, Read what's out there. If anything dealing with the government, or dealing with anything to do with the systems of the government, it's public. They have it out there. They don't hide anything, so there's information to read. So as you don't get caught up in the dogma or the doctrination of someone putting their personal opinion, thoughts, and views about it that has no moral legal standing in anywhere. The only place it exists is in those that believe it. And if you believe it, yes, it sounds right and it feels right. You can almost prove a lot of the stuff, but to the end, there is an end. So, nevertheless, the right to travel. constitutional right, and it talks about it. And even when the Constitution was written, you have to understand as well that that governing body of the Constitution, and what it is, a governing body in itself, it was written when people had horse and buggies. There were no automobiles. There were no um, things of that nature. And even with that, the courts and everyone else have already been decided and made their decisions on it, and they stand on their decisions of you still have the right to travel by horse and buggy without no one stopping you or no one bothering you in that whole process of you traveling to wherever, however it may be. So um you can move freely from state to state, inside the state in your private capacity to move you and your private things around through horse and buggy. But the government highways or the highways, the public highways, um, is a different thing. It's regulated by the government, and they have rules and regulations. And driving an automobile is not a part of traveling in your private capacity. You know, a bunch of people not gonna want to hear that. They don't want to understand that because of the wordplay with the driver. You know, the commercial thing. I'm not a CDL driver, and a bunch of more other stuff. Like I say, that reminds me of stories that you fall in love with into the indoctrination or the dogma of religions of certain things, whereas you never examine or look at things logically. You just take it for the truth and never examine it. You never put it up under the microscope. You just took it for what it was. And every time you go to get the results you think you should get, you get empty promises. God has failed you. God, why did this happen to me? Why did you let this happen? I put all my good energy and faith in believing that this thing will happen. That's about like picking oranges and got you a whole bucket of oranges and coming in the house making orange juices, but you believe you have the power to turn this orange juice into apple juice, or you believe that this orange juice is going to be apple juice, and you're going to pray to God and you're going to ask Him to fix and change and make this thing happen and support you, and you're going to pray for His petition to support you in this changery that will not ever happen. But nevertheless, like I say, don't get caught up in the hype. Don't fall in love with it. Read it. And if you do fall in love with it, then read more about it. You should be more intense about it. You should want more understanding in anything that you deal with, in any of these processes that you're going to come out here with, the status corrections, the changing your nationality, passport processes, claiming your straw man, the TDA accounts, which you can't get into. If you know anything about trust law, you're not going to be able to get it. If I was to create a trust in your name and made you the beneficiary, that don't mean you get a damn debit card to the account. You don't get access to those things. Just if there's beneficiary interest in it or things to give out to the beneficiary, then you can receive those benefits. But you don't have rights to. Benefits do not equate to rights. Benefits are basically, from a private standpoint, is the absence of rights. Okay. There's a difference between private and public too. So let me touch on that before I get into the video and show you some court cases. I'm not saying get into it. I'm already into the video, but get into it and show you some court case I'm going to read and show you some examples of some of the private plates people put out here, and do things of that nature as well. But you have public law, you have private law. And yes, common law is the basis of all other laws. But what you have to understand is the system is already designed, running, and operating this way. That the courts really don't deal with common law. They have policy and procedures and other things, regulations, license, uh, uh, permits, certificates, and all these other things that they deal with. Yes, they deal with the artificial entities, for say, but um, once you come over and to receive any of the benefits that we or a lot of people have deemed our rights have been turned into privileges. And I mean, our rights and privileges rights have been turned into privileges, and through the privileges, they're being uh, made into a way that it strips, they say, the private rights from every citizens, that they can't make licenses and require licensing for those private rights or the right to travel, for say. In the private, or even while you're in the public, by the common law, I haven't seen nobody but the Amish do it. Carry their and commute their stuff however they want to by horse, drone, and buggy. and that's how they communicate. That's how they travel. I know they'll update versions of the Amish as well that have come out and started using electricity and electronics and all the other stuff. I'm just saying. So those rights are stripped from you. But if you want to get there through these automobiles, which they regulate the creation of them and every fashion fashion of it, and the highways, then there's certain things you're gonna have to abide by. And there are certain rules and regulations that you have to volunteer. That seem like a forced compliance for you to volunteer to get and have. But there's other ways that in there that you can operate and still remain private in a sense. But nevertheless, no difference between public law and private law. Um, understand how the system is running, and um, and this video really came about because I got a bunch of younger generations coming through, and they're grabbing information, they're buying it to the thoughts and the idea without knowing how or what to research. Or the people that's giving it to them or selling it to them have not done it themselves. They're buying stuff and selling stuff that has not never worked. Only thing that has worked is the idea of it. Same way that's why I speak about doctrination and the dogma is only the ideal of it. Same way with the American dollar. If we quit using it, then it has the American dollar power is the faith and the ability of the people to still use it as a means of trading or source of commodity to trade amongst each other. It's built on the faith and credit of the people, their ability to believe in it and to use it. But nevertheless, let's go and get into this. I'm gonna share my screen. I know I've done a lot of explaining, but some of it needs to be said. And there's a lot of stuff I did not say. And that is all good too. I'm gonna see. Let's see, share this. Chrome here. And it's a private plate. No license or insurance required. Private. Not for commercial use. Private mode of travel. And a lot of people, this right here, you'll see on the YouTube and all over the place, man, it goes back. What you won't find is nobody actually being successful in any of this. I want you to think about something else too. You and your family in the car. Well, here's another principle of being private. If you're going to be private, is that you must stay in honor at all costs. And a man of honor and they or the woman of honor stays in their own domain where they have all control and power over. Where the word sovereignty comes over, you have sovereignty inside your home, your private life, and your private being, to be the sovereign ruler over all of that property and everything else you possess. So, give me 1 second, guys. Got a call coming in. I'm back. Sorry about that. Where were we at? Oh, and being in honor, you have to stay in honor, and that's something that you don't people don't teach that. That's something you got to have inside of yourself, integrity. You know what I mean? You go out here and make a debt. That's another thing. Everybody want to discharge debt and get into debt and say, okay, now I just want to discharge it as if it didn't exist. That's not how the universe works. If we're gonna stick on the religious basis, that's not how God works. God say He won't be marked. That uh you sow is what you're gonna reap. That you put in is what you're gonna get back. You know, you make those obligations and those promises, then you take care of your obligations and your promises. And you be that person of your word. That's what a sovereign would do. Nevertheless, say you fall into hard times and deal with other situations, while most people end up looking in these places or run across information like this, which people do fall on hard times. Uh, there's ways of dealing with debt collectors. You know what I mean? But the first thing is you still got to be honorable. You still got to deal with it. But nevertheless, that ain't what this particular video is about. Just want to put it out there because these these younger people and these babies are, like I say, grabbing this information and ain't nobody really teaching them or showing them anything. And they go out here and have the heart to try a lot of it. I'm just telling you, don't do it, babies. It get you locked up. They used to have these tags like this here, this private one I'm circling with my cursor, and also the exempt one. And it used to say exempt UCC 1-207. You know, that was done away with. Now it's UCC 1 308, all right reserves and all these other things I found. They teach about signing your name with no liability. And that's, that's another thing as well. Everybody want to do something without no liability in this movement. And that comes from a poor mentality. Um, I got into this, like I say, because of situations, into a lot of this information, but I didn't have a broke mentality. I had the mindset of an entrepreneur, have my own businesses. Um, I just want to learn more about how to operate and handle myself just as the wealthy does. Nevertheless, um, you have to be honorable. You take care of your business and things of that nature. So let's say that someone that has this private tag on their vehicle, they're driving with no insurance and they don't have no license. They have no way of, you're in an automobile. Say it's not even your fault. Maybe the person behind you hit you and you hit somebody else and your car ended up hurting somebody real bad. You're involved in an accident, whether it's your fault or not. And there is a injured party. And when it comes to injured parties, now you're in a legal place. This is why I said start off in the video talking about things. If you can't legally have anything to court cases, if you can't read case law and to see what the courts have already said and how they're handling this thing, then you jacked up. But say that you are hurt, your kids are hurt, no one, their doctor bills are too expensive for you to pay out of pocket. They ain't got no license, they don't have no insurance, and they don't have no way of paying you. If you were to sue them civilly, win in court, if they have no money in the bank account, you get nothing. You win the battle at the courthouse, but you lost the war. You're still injured, broke, and it could put you in a bad place of poverty. And that's not a good thing. That's not nothing good at all. And I don't wish it on no one anybody. That's why you got to have your license, you got to have your insurance, and you do all these other things. Like I say, there's other ways of handling your business. If you're going to be an honor, there's a way about going honorably and presenting yourself and allowing yourself to be who you are instead of having the assumption and the presumption of who they believe you are inside the system. These are the things we talk about, how you can operate inside the system and handle yourself inside the system as a private individual. But there are rights that you have if you can enforce them. Rights are only good if you can enforce them. That's like knowledge has no power unless it's applied. Just having it does you no good. But those two things there are a bunch of license plates and stuff you're gonna see. And I'm gonna tell you now, they're gonna lock you up with your kids in the car, no matter however it may be. Now, unless it's a good cop that understands that maybe you fell into some information that you didn't really, and you really don't know nothing about, but they still may be healthy fines and tickets. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to do before I go ahead and get off of here is show you the Supreme Court. It's from South Carolina, my hometown. And it's 21 pages. This is the actual, this is a copy of it. You can go to Just the Law, Casetext, or other places and look up the actual, from the actual court case. And not even trying to bang on nobody or, and let you know this is no knock against Mr. John Dalen or Dalon, how we pronounce the name, any of that stuff. But I just use this for an example because whenever you get into this, or if you have got into this, is make all the arguments everyone else has made. And this argument that you're going to see through here flows is what I call the story early that you fall in love with. The things that people can learn and the information you learn where there's a couple words or the way the words are done, you'll see it a certain way. And it sounds right and it sounds good, but it's not. So let's go ahead and roll down through here. And this is where they do court cases. You have the captions, who the petitioner, the respondent, it could be the appellant or the plaintiff, and the defendant, respondent, appellant, and respondent, yada, yada, yada. Question presented for review. Was petitioner John denied his constitutional protected common law right to travel, where the state has converted the right to travel into a privilege. And like I was saying earlier, I read through this. This is the way most of the time. I can guarantee you, this person here, it's more likely this person here, they've done their own research, um, would have seen the difference in a lot of the stuff that they wrote down. But these are just the basic arguments that you can find on YouTube, and you be able to follow this darn near verbatim in the person that's selling it to you and showing you some other tickets and some other things that and some of them even say that they sued and won and show no proof of it. If you try to find the court case and do it, that they ain't won anything. But nevertheless, see the law right to travel, where the state has converted the right to travel into a privilege. What the petitioner due process, denied due process of law by the state, wherein the state ignored the common law principles of a crime and prosecuted the petitioner under statutory rules that circumvent the United States Constitution and the common law. Saying that the Constitution and the common law, but these statutories, he's saying that they have circumvented, they got rid of them, made them no good, and charging him with a crime that by the Constitution and the common law, that it could not be enforceable of a crime because it wouldn't have been an issue. But now that by the state laws, they're ignoring the common law. So that's another, like I said, another part of the sales pitch, is that you have the right to travel. Do you know that the Constitution gives you the right to travel freely upon all these wherever you want to go, state loans, you're traveling, you're not driving, you're not driving the automobile, you're just traveling or conveying in your personal um, automobile, whatever it may be. They don't want you to use automobile and vehicle in certain other words. But anyway, were petitioner First Amendment rights violated by this the state's trial and criminal conviction for not obtaining driver license? The South Carolina state statute requires applicants for a driver license to provide a social security card in order to attain said license. The federal social security statutes do not require anyone to attain a number unless that person is requesting federal benefits. The federal, that's why I say I don't want to keep reading the name because I don't want to, and I don't really want to bash this individual or the name. So I'm not trying to slander him or any of that. Just public record I'm reading. Rescinded his social security number many years ago and no longer has a social security card, making it impossible for him to comply with the state statutes without compromising his religious beliefs. And yes, you do have religious beliefs, and you do have constitutional rights that protect your religious beliefs, and you do not have to have a social security number unless you're going to be dealing with banking and dealing into the society. But because of religious beliefs as well as us, we don't use it. Different. It's for the day, but not for the day. Not to get too deep into it. So for his religious beliefs, I believe that would be a good reason not to have one. But nevertheless, it does not get away with having some type of identification number if you're going to get you a license, because the license just doesn't have to have a social. You can have identification number. They just ask for it. Anyway, so to say he doesn't have it, and that he was saying that they violated his First Amendment rights by happening to have all these other things. Anyway, so let's keep on going. List of the parties. The parties involved in the case are all parties appearing in the caption of the case and cover page. C, table of contents, table of citation authorities. Table of contents, questions presented for review, parties involved, table of contents, and the table of authorities. And this is the way you have to send in your paperwork whenever you're sending it in and putting in your appeals and all this other stuff. There's a certain criteria format that you have to fill out your paperwork to turn into the clerk. Citation, all this stuff. We're going to read through it. Reason for granting the writ, and he's asking the Supreme Court to hear it because he feels he's raised a constitutional question. And with that, that allows the Supreme Court to hear cases that are involving the Constitution and the challenging of the Constitution validity in situations by government officials as well. Okay, so once I say government officials, I mean the courts or whatever it may be, or who's ever being governed by the government, and they're what people call public servants. Anyway, leave that alone too. Yeah, we'll go through this right here in the conclusion real quick. To determine whether fundamental constitutional protected rights, i.e. the right to travel or the right to travel under the common law, can be converted into a privilege by the state and are denied to a citizen by the conversions of their rights to a privilege. There are numerous U.S. Supreme Court decisions affirming that a state may not convert a right to a privilege, and the petitioner has relied on these opinions. Petitioner has was prosecuted under statutory laws which undermine the petitioner's common law right. Just another argument that they make too. And then the conclusion. So let's roll on down here and get in the index. This is going to show all the stuff that took place prior to him getting to the Supreme Court, from the lower courts all the way up. And a lot of informations and all the things, the legal things that took place. So the guy went through, now he went through the decision of the State Court of Appeal. It was affirmed. The appellant case number. So whatever, let's say the magistrate court, then it goes to the, what we call down here is the big court, general session, state court. So they affirmed the magistrate court, saying that the guy, you got to have your license, blah, 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 blah. They affirmed. Appellant case number, unpublished opinions, decision of the state magistrate court, case number, jury trial, opinions of state circuit court magistrate, court affirmed. And then when you see this affirmed, they're affirming the same decision that was handed down to him while he's going through the process. He didn't have a successful day in court. Case number dated, motion for reconsideration, denied. He put in a motion to reconsider their decision and why they were saying that he was wrong, and they denied it. Order of the State Courts of Appeal denying rehearing. They denied the rehearing up there too. The appellant court issued decision of State Supreme Court denying review. Appellant case, petition for writ of certiorari. And if I butchered that, it's all good. You can read it. Denied. So he went all the way up from the Court of Appeals denying the hearing, and then he tried to go to the Supreme Court after he got that decision that they denied him, and then Supreme Court denied the review. Now I think that's the Supreme Court of South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. And it petition of writ of criteria denied, order of trial court relating to federal issues. So he took it to the federal Supreme Court, where it looks like to me. Magistrate dismissed, denied, order. So this is the information to give back all up to them, and all the information leading up to him get to the federal Supreme Court. Supreme Court petition for criteria appeal court petition rehearing. Court of Appeals, final brief, motion for finding facts and conclusion of law, motion of reconsider, motion to dismiss for lack of jurisdiction, motion of pleading that raise federal issues. And these are all the court cases and court laws. We'll read through these too. We won't go through the name, but if you go search these things up here, he's pulling out pieces from this court, from this whole court thing. I don't know if it's from the decision or what. I haven't read the whole thing. The police power of the state must be exercised in subordination to the provision of the U.S. Constitution, in which it probably does support that too, but it doesn't support what he's trying to say about his common law right in the Constitution. Board versus United States. It is the duty of the court to be watchful for the constitutional rights of the citizens and against any stealthy encroachments therein. Like I said, all of this is good legal stuff. And these right here have proven good cases, I guarantee you. I don't know why I'm saying I guarantee you. But I'm telling you that most of these right here, knowing court cases and doing a lot of reading beforehand, some of these I've already read. I just don't have them on top of my mind or may not be familiar with every verse. I mean, every case by name and stuff like that. But they support where people were actually having their constitutional rights of the citizens against any stealthy encroachments thereon. You know, where the court did decide that where there was some of the things, but that had nothing to do with um, that concept or the person's concept of the right to travel or concepts of the constitutions. It's blurred. But nevertheless, Constitution right here at Barrios versus U.S. Constitutional provisions to be liberally construed is to be liberally construed, and it is the duty of the courts to be watchful for the constitutional rights of the citizens and against any stealthy encroachment thereof. These are the ones: the use of the highways for the purpose of travel and transportation is not a mere privilege, but a common and fundamental right of which the public and the individual cannot be rightfully deprived. He's in those three cases it talks about it. And with regard particularly to the U.S. Constitution, it is elementary that a right secured or protected by that document cannot be overthrown or impaired by any state police authority. This case here, we are the opinion. So I'm just going through reading all the stuff up under the names. You go back, slow down the video, study this good stuff. It'll be something to use for a good study guide for you to go read these cases and see what was put in by everybody and read what the court's opinion and what they have decision was on. That's another way to learning what and how they decide and look at things. That way you can get out of your head a lot of stuff that you believe that should be right, what the court should decide. Anyway, we are of the opinion that there's clear distinction between an individual and a corporation. The individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. He is entitled to carry on his private business in his own way. His power to contract is unlimited. He owes no duty to the state. He owes no such duty to the state, since he receives nothing therefrom beyond the petition of his life and property. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land, long existing to the organization of the state, and can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. And that is absolutely right. When it comes to this right here, when you read this and understand it, it's what they're saying too, it's absolutely right. But that has nothing to do with driving an automobile. And that's good stuff to know too, because a lot of times, like we talked about earlier, this right here being to the sale pitch as well. And then they have you be misconstrued in between that blurred line of what is constitutional right, common law right, and these other things. The state cannot diminish rights of the people. Due process of law is process of law according to the law of the land, i.e. the U.S. Constitution is exercised within the limits prescribed and interpreted according to the principles of the common law, which is true. And it deals with it, but when we deal with common law, you have to understand what common law is and how they determine common law. You know, go back to the 1800s and prior to figure out what was common law practices. You got to do more research than just a general today's concept of common law. And like he says too about due process of law, it's good stuff. They can't take anything from you without due compensation. And if they do take it from you, which they have the power and authority to take it from you, they must pay you for it. It gives you fair market value. Okay. Hey, I think it's right here about page 5. You see the cursor. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Any law is conflict is null and void. Good stuff to know. The claim and exercise of a constitutional right cannot be converted into a crime. Where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation which could abrogate them. The state may not convert a secured liberty into a privilege and issue a license and fee for it. That's the other thing they talk about it, and that is true as well. So they're not going to make you get a license for your horse and buggy. First Amendment case, U.S. Supreme Court overturned South Carolina Supreme Court. The court created the Sherbert test to determine whether government acts infringes upon religious freedoms or no compelling interest, and narrowly tailored or key requirements for sticky scrutiny to be applied where a law may be infringed or individual freedoms. Some more good stuff. And that's what he's using to with his religious freedom of not having a social. So that's the part he's using to go with all the other stuff he's doing. His statements and his questions are things we showed you earlier in the caption of this case. This is his supporting evidence, in a sense. If the state does convert your right into a privilege and issue a license and charge you a fee for it, you can ignore the license and fee and engage in the right with impunity. Now, that one I haven't read. But anyway, that don't sound too good. Challenge someone to go read this and leave it in the comments of the video. See, what did you find? I'm going to go read it as well later on. We find it intolerable that one constitutional right should have to be surrendered in order to assert another. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of their exercise of constitutional rights, explaining the distinction between rights to use public roads and privilege. The right of the citizen to travel is not a mere privilege, but a common right, which he has under the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Oh, there's some good stuff there too. Strict scrutiny standard. Regarding criminal elements required to be proven, willfulness is one of the major elements defined as an evil motive to intent to avoid a knowing duty under the law. And you got the South Carolina Code of Laws, Chapter 1, and the motor vehicles through their in the books. Other authorities, the right of a citizen to travel upon the public highway and to transport his property thereon by horse-drawn carriage, wagon, or automobile. It's not a mere privilege which may be permitted or prohibited at will, but a common right which he has under the right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Under this constitutional guarantee, one may therefore, under normal conditions, travel at his inclusions along the public highways or in a public place, and while conducting himself in an ordinary and decent manner, neither interfering with nor disturbing another's rights, he will be protected not only in his person, but in his safe conduct. And they are saying other authorities. Second, American Jurisprudence, first constitutional law. Section, second American Jurisprudence. That's something else to go look up. And I want to see if it says the automobile, if it has it in there. That was another thing while I was looking at this case before I showed it to you guys, but I never did go finish looking it up. But nevertheless, sounds fishy. Okay, that's not case law. It's American Jurisprudence. Anyway, another American Jurisprudence. Another, no public policy or state can be allowed to override the positive guarantee of the U.S. Constitution. Still on the American Jurisprudence before we get into the black laws. The black laws, American Jurisprudence, obviously, this is a lot of the dictionaries or a lot of the groundwork that lawyers and judges are supposed to use as they learn how to practice law or to deal within law. But then you have to also understand too, when you get into the executive office or the legislation office of the government, where we get these policy and procedures, that then you do have opinions of the courts, and the courts have decided and looked at these same constitutional rights and values, and through that they've handled cases and dealt with cases, and they've made their decision, and they decide all decisions not off of a lot of stuff that we try to teach them, or how a lot of times, like say the process of this right here, with him trying to educate the courts on what should be done, how it should be done, and how they're messing up, and how they should fix and fix this right now, standing on the common law practice or whatever. But anyway, the courts have already decided and made things, and they have their decisions and the way they view things. Um they have an answer for all of this stuff that most of the time they've been presented for them to go fix. Nevertheless, um, American jurisprudence, no public policy or state law can be allowed to override the positive guarantee of the U.S. Constitution. The general misconception is that any statute passed by legislators bearing the appearance of law constitutes the law of the land, right to travel, requirement that regulations not violate the constitutional guarantees, definitive term, travel and traveler, definitions, motor vehicle, driver, license, definitions, term of art as a word or phrase that has a precise specialized meaning within a particular field of professions. Encyclopedia defines term of art as a word or phrase that has special meaning in particular context. The United States Constitution, the judicial power shall extend to all cases. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and the judges are bound thereby. He's pulling up the Constitution in the articles where he talks about these things, but I'm not going to dive deep into it and saying that you're going to have to go read and search to see if this is what it actually says, or this is his own opinion about what Article 5, Article 6 says, whatever. U.S. Constitution, First Amendment, freedom of religion, reasonable search and seizure, due process of law, applying First Amendment protected to the states. Okay, the petitioner requests that the court issues a writ of certiorari, review of the judgment of the South Carolina Courts of Appeals entered in the case. The opinion denying rehearing was entered on the petitioner. Writ of certiorari in the South Carolina Supreme Court was denied. Blah blah blah. Okay. Citation to opinions and the basis for jurisdiction. The date on which the highest state court denied my case was blah blah. A copy of that decision. A time of petitioner hearing. South Carolina court denied jurisdiction of the court. Okay, that's really not telling us too much of nothing. Constitutional provisions and legal principles involved. The U.S. Constitution, Article 3, provides that the judicial power shall extend to all cases. And the U.S. Constitution, Article 6, states that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and judges are bound thereby. The United States Constitution, First Amendment, guarantees the rights of the people to be free in the exercise of their religious belief. The U.S. Constitution, Fourth Amendment, protects the people from unreasonable search and seizure. The U.S. Constitution, Fifth Amendment, provides for due process of law, which is process in accordance with the United States Constitution and the common law. And the U.S. Constitution, the 14th Amendment, applies these protections to the states. Statement of the case. This is factual background. Now, this is where it gets into what happened, what went on, and things of that nature. So we're going to read through this too. Once again, if you enjoy yourself, like, share, subscribe, comment. So I know the video is going to be rolling even though it's not live. If you're still doing it, if you ain't done it already, please do so. And we thank you in advance, and thank you to all those that already have liked, subscribed, and commented. Okay. Petitioner was stopped on a South Carolina state checkpoint and asked to provide a driver license. Petitioner informed the officer that he had not committed any crime and asked if he was free to go. at which point the officer informed the petitioner that he would be arrested if he did not produce a driver's license. Petitioner was subsequently issued a citation for driving without a license, and then he was released. And he's got the court case to say that goes with it. And we're going to skip through most of this, the court case and all the other stuff. He's already got them listed. And if these are different from any of the ones he got listed, go and search them up and see. Okay, now we're right here. That's where we're at. At the trial court, the petitioner repeatedly asserted his rights, saying he was not a driver and that the officer in question had falsely arrested him. And the officer had threatened to seize petitioner property, a 1989 Chevy van. Petitioner challenged the trial court's jurisdiction and the courts. After failing to prove jurisdiction, proceeded to trial anyway, which resulted in a criminal conviction for the petitioner. So he's saying that the courts never proved their jurisdiction to him. I don't know what the court said. I didn't get the transcript, or like I said, I didn't dig all the way into it, but just from reading it from the surface, told them that they had it. The more likely they told me that they had jurisdiction because he got pulled over in the act of it by an officer. So anyway, what were we up into? Anyway, he got charged with a criminal charge. Also at trial, petitioner informed the magistrate that the driver's license were law required an applicant to produce a social security card as part of a required identification in order to obtain driver license. Petitioner told the magistrate that he had, in fact, rescinded his social security number years ago and did not have such a card. The federal law does not require anyone to obtain a social security number unless applying for benefits. The petitioner informed the court that he does not wish to get any benefits from the government and objected to the number on religious grounds, and therefore could not apply for a social security card. In which you have that right. I want to say that too, and let it be known that you have the right to do that. I rescinded mine in a sense. You know what they told me once I sent those letters in? Stop using it. That's all you can do. The Social Security Administration is not operating the way it was when it was first created. That you can't just draw out of it and tell them give you your money back because your investment that you putting in, you don't want to participate in it no more. It don't work that way. Just quit using your social. Quit creating or getting things in your social. In that sense, quit creating debt or tax liabilities or taxable event with using that social. As I said before, there's other ways of getting numbers for those that really do, as I do. You exhort your religious rights and your religious beliefs. There's ways of obtaining and getting things using alternative numbers. But if you want to go through and say that you don't want no benefits or privileges from them, then the license, I'm sorry, is a benefit and a privilege that comes with driving the automobile on the public highway. Now, you don't have to get you no license. You can walk the road, you can get you a bicycle, you can get you a horse and a buggy, but you can't get you no car, can't get you no motorcycle, can't get you no mobile home on wheels or RVs and operate them or drive them or travel in them on those highways without all the requirements to make sure that the public isn't in danger. That, the public has rights as well. As I spoke about it earlier, learn the difference between private and public rights. As long as you stay in the private and does not infringe on anyone or cause any occurrence or harm to any other one, and the public is viewed as a one, even if it is an entity. Anyway, look, truth may hurt, but it's the stuff you need to know. So as you won't make a fool of yourself and waste your time and give them money in your life and away from your family and your kids, if you have them or your loved ones. Okay, we're gonna scroll back down here. to the owner on appeal. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I had to get another water. This candy, I'm doing a lot of talking. It's making my mouth really dry. And we're back down here. On appeal, petitioner reinserted his rights and informs that he's trying. I'm not gonna say he's trying. He's enforcing his rights. He's putting it down. He's standing before the court and he's putting the paperwork. And he's actually standing on his square. And he's exerting his rights. And we're gonna see how far that goes. And not saying that doing that is a bad thing. Just you got to know how to exhort your rights, and if there is a right that you're trying to exhort. A lot of times we're caught up in the dream and the story and believing it's a right when it's not. Ain't nothing being taken from you. Okay. On appeal, petitioner reinstated his rights and informed the courts that the U.S. Supreme Court had repeatedly ruled that the state could not convert a right into a privilege, issuing a license and charging a fee for the exercise thereof. South Carolina Code of Laws, Title 56, Chapter 1, Motor Vehicles Sections. The Motor Vehicle Statute clearly states that it is renting a privilege. Petitioner believes that is this status, as well as any other license statute, can only apply to fictional or corporate entities. It is to be constitutional, and therefore, as it is, was applied to the petitioner, who is a living, breathing being and who had no contract with the state that could show otherwise. This status is blatantly unconstitutional. The appellant dismissed all of the petitioner arguments and affirmed the trial court's convictions. Petitioner was thus denied due process of law. So we're going to go to, this is another thing that happens too when you get taught this stuff and people teaching this stuff. Like I said, I learned some of this. I don't teach it in this manner. He believed that the state had taken it and made it took away his right to travel and made it a privilege and gave him the license, which is unconstitutional. And also about the fictional corporate entity, some would call it the straw man or this fictional character, as I said earlier, another entity. So the story goes behind the straw man is when you're born, you're the living, breathing person, and then you have a live birth form that you get, and they put your footprints on them. I know they did down here. I don't know nobody anywhere else. Put your footprints on it, and they said they stole your soul, took the footprints of the baby and the name and all this other stuff, and turned it into vital statistics. And vital statistics turns it into a bond, which is written on bond paper, and gives you that bond paper called a birth certificate with different information on it. And it's gonna have that date. And it's not they're not gonna coexist with the same information, just some of the pieces. But anyway, then after you get that birth certificate, then you apply for the Social Security card because that's what you normally do. So that kid can have a Social Security number, and therefore becomes the account that they've created for the straw man. The straw man is the Social Security carrying fictional character that they produce from the live birth onto the birth certificate. Now that you have the birth certificate, everything is going to be written into all capital, which means in linguist, fictitious. Same way with corporations. And this is his argument. Like I say, we learn a lot of stuff that make a lot of truth, but they're not legal truth. But in a sense, when we understand what's going on, you can understand the legal truths and the truths and how they do coexist. But nevertheless, so there's your straw man in the account. And then this is where you get your TDA account, where people say that the birth certificate, if you go look it up on the I forgot what you call it, but you can look it up on the bonds and stocks, and then it shows how much that certificate or that number on the bottom of the birth certificate is worth. And this is the thing I talked about earlier, secret TDA account. I don't care if it is worth something. If there's a bunch of money that's in there, you can't get into it and get it. You're going to jail if you can't access it. People have gone to jail trying to access it because it's not legally possible. You're just a beneficiary of the trust before they call the straw man or the corporation. You're just a beneficiary. So they say that the corporation of the straw man is the legal liable one and the physical person isn't. Because they put a lien on the straw man, then that's what they're doing if you've been charged with a crime. There's been a lien put on you, which all of this makes factual sense. And they put a lien on you, meaning that everything tied to that social is already tied up into a process, whereas somebody's going to get the money first, or somebody's going to get something off of you first. And it basically cripple you from entering into a bunch of things because people don't want to enter in contracts or enter into money agreements with someone with a lien on them, knowing that they're not going to get theirs first if something happens. This is a real quick crash course, so bear with me so as you can understand more about what's going on. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because there's a lot of information that's been missing from people just giving a little short, quick right to travel. You got the right, here's your constitution, right, 12-minute video. And if you were sold in 12 minutes, there's too much information for you to get enough truth in 12 minutes for you to go out here and trying this dumb stuff. Anyway, so understanding that process is what he's bringing to the courts and getting them and trying to get them to understand this is his case, and this is why they've been kicked out and thrown out. Then they're teaching us too that the courts are crooked. They don't want to deal with the common law. They won't do it. We're up under maritime law, the fringes in the courtroom, and all this other stuff. They don't want to deal with the common law. There's no court for the common law no more. That's about like if a strong country comes in and invades another country and take over that country, and they set up their rule and their government, you can give up the dream of your homeland's rule and government because you're under another government and dictatorship. Someone's gonna leave that, take it like you want. Anyway, so when there's a new thing going on and those things have grown to now, that's what you have to deal with. So he made that case about he's not the straw man in a sense. What he says, I'm not the straw man. I'm not the all capital person. I'm the living, breathing person, and I'm not liable for that. You know, we're two different entities. Me, I'm only held up under the common law, so you can't charge me with anything because I operate up under the common law, and I myself have not contracted with the government because I didn't get a license, so I don't have to follow the laws of the highway because I didn't contract with you to attain a driver license. That doesn't know the rules. That doesn't negate the laws or the statutes or whatever they have prescribed for you to get these licenses. You don't get to say I can go out here anyway. It doesn't work that way. Yes, you didn't contract with them with a license. You know, I can see you not, if you're on the passenger side of the vehicle and they want to get you for speeding, yeah, I can tell them I ain't got no contract with you. You're gonna charge me with speeding on the passenger side. But anyway, this is his argument. There's a lot of time ways produced to you or presented to you and taught to you. And if you're under that concept, if you grow more information, you're under the wrong concept. So that misunderstanding and misconcept grows bigger. And then you become an issue for the public because now you are not nowhere near honorable. You already believe that you're already above and on top of everything. Nevertheless, okay. And they say because of that, he was denied due process. When we're coming down, the common law requires that a criminal conviction must have an injured party, which it does, and or involve damages of persons or property. The state or a fictional creation cannot be the victim. It's an argument been made over and over again inside of a bunch of court cases. So you do the research. I'm not going to step on that long, but that argument in that case has been made plenty of times that the state can't be. How can the state charge me when the state it's a fictional, you know? So when you learn about corporations and things of that nature, same with the owner, the president, you can't sue the owner or the president. You can't sue the president of the corporation. You have to sue the owner of the corporation or sue the corporation. And then when you sue the corporation, there are people that are delegated to receive this paperwork or these legal uh, the chart, or if you're going to take them to court, they receive the paperwork from you, and then someone has to go and represent the company, a representative that can bind the company, like the owner or him that's over the, So if I work for a company You can sue the company because of my performance, but you can't sue me unless I've done something to you civilly or on that process. Then you can sue me outside of the court. So if I hit you in the company vehicle, you can sue the company and me. Okay, but you have to sue me in a civil capacity. But anyway, that's a lot of stuff. But most time, whenever you don't sue and won in the court case, then you can't sue me civilly because they fix it. Whereas this is what you get, you win here. Most time people come out through civilly is when they win here and they get no money. They try to come out through. Anyway, nevertheless, there's no inter party, and so they make that case over and over again. And you'll see a lot of it in this movement as well, too. So we're gonna see how that works and see how it actually works in court. And okay. The state is a fictional creation, cannot be the victim. There was no victim in the case, and there was no property damage. Therefore, there cannot be a crime under common law, which he is right, but they're not bringing him into court under common law. That's another thing too. The petitioner was merely exercising a constitutional protected right that the state, which a motor vehicle statute has converted into a privilege and attempted to issue a license, charging a fee, and criminalizing the exercise of a constitutional protected right for compliances with the statutes. Exercise of a constitutional protected right for the non-compliance with the statute. Petitioners believing that this statute is blatantly unconstitutional, and he is relying on previous U.S. Supreme Court decisions. Give me 1 second. I want my baby to walk through on me. I had lost my train of thought. The petitioner was common law required that the criminal conviction must be an inter party and are involved damages to persons or property. The state, as a fictional creation, cannot be the victim. There was no victim in the case, and there was no property damage. Therefore, there cannot be a crime under common law. The petitioner was merely exercising a constitutional protected right that the state, through its motor vehicle statute, has converted into a privilege and attempted to issue a license, charging a fee, and criminalizing the exercise of a constitutional protected right for non-compliance with the statute. Petitioner believes this statute is blatantly unconstitutional, and he is relying on previous U.S. Supreme Court decisions. These decisions are itemized in the table of contents for the documents, which a line describing the decisions of the courts underneath the title of the case and listed as following. That is all the list of them. Petitioner also believes that under the guise of regulations and using simulated legal processes, the state has used terms of arts of words and arts and often legalese. And this is what you're going to hear in the movement too, when people the freedom fighters, the sovereign citizens, a lot of people claiming to be private, a state citizen, a state national, the Moors or whatever. This is another, like I say, this is something else you'll be taught behind the scenes about them and their legalese and, the arts of words and how they use the words which we do use in a common day, in a normal day setting, are not the same. They don't have the same legal meaning. The same way the word may, when we use it in a conversation, and normally it means that you have an option. Well, I may go there and I may not, without having to say I may not go there. When I say I may go there, automatically implies I may go and I may not go there. They follow each other. Option. When you hear may in a legal term, it means must. What we say is must. Like if my daddy told me to do something, I must go do it. I don't have an option in it. I got to go do it. This must be done. So, yes, that is true. But we're going to see how that works out into saying that in the courts. We're proving that. Like I said, a lot of stuff is legal, it's truth, but it's not legal truth. You can't prove it. You can't have nothing to stand on to get the courts to make and decide and change their view and opinion on it. That's the point I was speaking of, the opinion and views about earlier of the courts. Petitioner also believes that under the guise of regulation of using simulated legal terms, the state has used terms of art of words and arts of other legalese to deceive the prosecute Blount and other individuals similarly uh, situated under statutes that violated every uh, citizen's inalienable right that are protected by the United States Constitution. The case represented an opportunity for the United States Supreme Court to review the practice of the state of South Carolina's petition pertaining to egregious and widespread overstepping of the state's authority in violation of constitutional principles that not only affect South Carolina residents, but all residents of the United States. The United States is currently facing a constitutional crisis wherein local, state, and federal governments are overreaching the bounds of the Constitution and the courts are sitting on their hands while the public is failing. Petitioner believes the Supreme Court could use this case and others like it to right the ship of state by providing guidance and reinserting the constitutional limits of the government. And that's good. He put on there at the end that, you know what I mean, this will be a good case for you guys to take and prove us right and fix this stuff. Ooh, this is a good time for the Supreme Court to review this for the 100th time, 100,000th time. Okay, the reason for granting the writ. The U.S. Supreme Court needs to grant this petition because the state of South Carolina, through its rulemaking and enforcement bodies, has been and continue this to be not only South Carolina, for what he's talking about in this court case, will be every state that has a license, that issues a license. Throughout the rulemaking and the enforcement bodies, has been and continues to be engaging in the usurpation of constitutional protection rights under color of law. Petitioner also believes that under the guise of regulations and using simulated legal processes, the state has used terms of art of words of the art of other legalese to deceive and prosecute and other individuals simulated under statutes that violate every citizen's inalienable rights that are protected by the United States Constitution. Petitioner is about to herein present two personal examples of the state's conversion of a right into a privilege, and one within the right to a jury trial was denied to petitioner on statutory grounds, violate the constitutional rights of the petitioner under color of law. The state of South Carolina has enacted a building and professions code which deceptively attempts to deceive citizens into waiving their right to engage in business and professions, purporting to require anyone engaging in the business or professions to attain a license and pay a fee. However, hidden in the statute, the state acknowledges that the people have a right to engage in business and professions. The U.S. Supreme Court has confirmed this right in several of their rulings. The petitioner was charged with failing to procure a license for the activities he was engaged in. He informed the commissions that he was engaged in the business and professions by right and did not have a license and did not intend to get a license. He also informed the commission that their very own statute confirmed that the commission only has jurisdiction over licensed individuals. The commission held a hearing in petitioner's absence and fined him $500, which petitioner refused to participate in their hearing, citing lack of jurisdiction, and informed the commission that he would ignore their fines. And that what it sounded like to me is that the guy was told to come to court and for not having his license, and he didn't come, and they charged him the $500 for not having it and not having reason to show why he didn't have a license. Because there are other places where you can do your stuff on your own, and you can build on your own property, and like I talked about, your own sovereign capacity of your own property. You can build for your own protect, but you can't build for no one else. Once you leave your domain and go out here to help someone else in their domain, you have switched domains. So you're not acting in honor. If you're out there, they say it's a business or however it may be. So if you're going to be over there erecting something on their property and their things, then they're saying you need a license to do so. That's what it is. The city government of Clemson, South Carolina, claiming the authority of the state to enact business license, ticketed petitioner for working without a license. He did not participate in their trial and was convicted. Petitioner had previously correspondence with the city prosecutor and the magistrate judge, informing them that their ordinance clearly stated that it was a privilege tax, and since he was exercising a constitutional protected right, he was not subject to the ordinance. The municipal court ignored the constitutional challenges and held a trial over petitioner's objection. He appealed the conviction, and when the city attorney failed to appear for the hearing, the circuit court judge overturned the conviction and dismissed the case. A new city attorney replaced the former and proceeded to retry the case again over petitioner's objections and held a new trial on the same case that had already been dismissed. Petitioner refused to participate in what he considered to be a sham trial and was subsequently convicted and fined $500. Petitioner informed the municipal court that any attempt to issue a bench warrant for his arrest or otherwise attempt to collect a fine would result in a Title 42 section lawsuit for depriving of the rights of under the laws. Petitioner also attempted to enlist the aid of our state's Attorney General, Alan Wilson, but was informed that it was not the job of an Attorney General to protect a citizen's right. It was his job to protect the state, and that he only issued opinions that were requested by state agents and agencies. And that's some good stuff to know too. Dealing with that, a lot of times people tell you to go send your information to the Attorney General about that whole process. You know, the rescission of your. They teach you in some of the other processes about rescission of the contracts, rescission of the signature, rescission of the social security number, sending them your exempt status, and all this other stuff for your constitutional right to send to the attorney general and all the other governors and all. Like I say, when y'all get into this rabbit hole of information, you're gonna see a bunch of stuff. But if you will just read some of the other stuff and like say the stuff and tells you what the attorney general does. So why would anyway? Let's go. Uh-huh. Petitioner also had a case involving the foreclosure of his home, wherein his right to a trial by jury was denied on statutory ground. Petitioner believed this was unconstitutional and took the case to the South Carolina Appeals Court and the state Supreme Court, where petitioner arguments were denied. He then applied this to the United States Supreme Court, where certiorari was denied. All of the above constitute egregious uh, inglorious injuries to the petitioner, and if I butcher that word, go ahead, pass it. Violates and protections under the Constitution and the common law, which he is supposed to enjoy as a free American. All the petitioner cited cases clearly show violation of the Constitution and the common law, according to the many Supreme Court decisions relied upon as listed in the table of cases in this document. This is no gray area here. This is basic law. Petitioner exercises inalienable constitutional protected right. Petitioner is not a creator of this creature of the state. Petitioner does not exercise privileges but rights. The statutes under which petitioner has been prosecuted are applicable to the corporation or other fictional entities that do in fact engage in privileges. Former Supreme Court Justice, I am trying to read that name, lamented that the Supreme Court no longer follow constitutional law, but rules strictly on statutory laws. A government that does not obey its constitution is a illegitimate government. We are seeing this in all levels of government today, including our courts. If our courts no longer will defend our Constitution, where are the people to turn? Number one conclusion. This case is simple right versus privilege case. The statute petitioner was prosecuted under South Carolina Code of Laws. Motor Vehicle Statutes clearly states that it is granting a privilege. Numerous United States Supreme Court decisions have affirmed that the right to travel is a fundamental right, constitutional protected, and the status cannot convert these rights to privileges, nor make the exercise of a constitutional right a crime. In light of the case, there that is the subject of this petition and of the other cases that have been just mentioned, it is apparent that the state of South Carolina is engaged in the semantic de- deprivation of rights under color of law. Therefore, the Supreme Court needs to review this case and affirm the principle that rights cannot be converted into privilege and exercise, therefore, cannot be made a crime. The petitioner requests that the court grant this petition of writ of uh, certiorari or whatever we call it. But this is his whole petition. So this is the whole thing that he done was put into the court case. And I'm gonna pause this in a little bit and go find the actual, maybe in Comcast case text, and I'm gonna show you what the courts decided and thought about it. And this was done in 2022. And so this guy here made what when I first started. If I'd have read this when I first started, I'd have read this and thought that we'd had a Supreme Court ruling to overturn it from the information, the way I was learning it and the understanding I was up under, not where I'm at now. This thing is good. He's got it right, putting the right stuff, court cases and all this other stuff. But nevertheless, let's I know I've been at it for a minute, really ain't worried about that. So okay, this right here is, if I'm not mistaken, this is where we're gonna get the opinion, and it talks about all the stuff that actually happened there that we're reading through a while ago. And that's where he goes through. I want to see if I can see, but it does say that these courts here perform. So we're gonna see the argument. And I don't know if I better get in here from that. No, no. Just give me a second, guys. I want to read into it and see. Talk about the magistrate court did error in process. It did not error. Okay, so here's what they're saying when we read it, what he said, what went on. Per Craven, this opinion has no presidential value. It should not be cited or relied on as presidential in any proceedings except as provided in Rule 264D2, South Carolina laws and stuff. Submitted November 1st, 2020. Appeal from North Judge. Just the name, Attorney General. These are all the other people tagged to it. John Dellin appeared. So this is the per curiam. So this is what they give me about the case and what they determined about it, all the other stuff. So what I read you earlier was what he put into the courts. This is their answer to it, basically. John Dillon appeared to the circuit courts ordering, affirming his conviction for driving without a license and denying his motion for a new trial on appeal. He argues the magistrate erred in proceeding with a trial after he challenged the court's jurisdiction. The magistrate and circuit courts erred in ignoring his constitutional challenges. And they give their stuff. The processes before the magistrate and circuit courts violated his due process rights, and the magistrate and circuit courts violated his First Amendment rights. Give me 1 second. Huh. Okay, John Dillon appeared to circuit court or ordering affirming his conviction for driving. I think we just read that. I'm not sure. So if I did, I apologize. I had to step out for a minute, come right back in. John Dillon appeals the circuit court orders affirming his conviction for driving without a license and denying his motion for a trial appeal. So he went through all of this. And they say that when they say we affirm, they're not talking about him. They are talking about with the other courts. They affirmed their rulings. They wanted John Dillon appeals the circuit court ordering affirming his conviction for driving without a license and denying his motion. So they still affirmed it. The magistrate court did not err in proceeding with trial because it had subject matter and personal jurisdiction, and a uniform traffic ticket is a valid charging instrument. First, the magistrate court had subject matter jurisdiction over the case. So he tried to say that the court didn't have jurisdiction and they proceeded on without having jurisdiction or proven jurisdiction, and then they convicted him. This is what the courts have said. No, no, no. Anyway, subject matter jurisdiction is the power of the court to hear and determine cases of the general classes to which the proceeding is questioning belongs. The General Assembly shall provide for a magistrate term of office and its civil and criminal jurisdiction. I mean, the big court above it sets the terms, so the magistrate, the lieutenant court should be acting just like general session, rules, regulation, operation in a sense. Magistrates shall have and exercise within their respective counties all the powers, authorities, and jurisdiction in criminal cases herein set forth. And that's where it's set forth there. Providing magistrates with exclusive jurisdiction of all criminal cases in which the punishment does not exceed a fine of $100 or imprisonment of 30 days. Providing magistrate with jurisdiction over all offenses which may be subject to the penalties of a fine or forfeiture not exceeding $500 or imprisonment not exceeding 30 days or both. Stating provides for magistrate courts to have exclusive jurisdiction over all criminal cases in which punishment does not exceed a fine of $100 or imprisonment for 30 days in section, increasing the amount of the maximum fine of $500. So it's in a traffic court, small court, you can get locked up no more than 30 days to $100 in a criminal civil offense, what they would call, depending on what type of ticket you get. Anyway, second, the magistrate court had personal jurisdiction over that person because dealing uniform traffic ticket stated the violation occurred in that county. The magistrate court conducted the trial in that county. Stating personal jurisdiction in a criminal case lies in the state or county where the crime was committed. So they have it because that's where it was. Subject matter jurisdiction. Third, a uniform traffic ticket is a proper charging instrument, and Deland's ticket was supported by probable causes. State a uniform traffic ticket will be used by police in arrest for traffic offenses and additional offenses. The service of uniform traffic tickets shall vest all traffic recordings and magistrate courts with jurisdictions to hear and to dispose of the charge for which the ticket was issued and served. Eliminates the need for an arrest warrant and authorizes the use of a uniform traffic ticket to notify an accused and commence judicial proceedings in the magistrate court. So that's another good thing if you don't understand or didn't understand or didn't catch it. It says that it eliminates the need for an arrest warrant. It eliminates, get rid of that certain traffic violation. You ain't got to go to jail for it. You're not getting locked up for it. They're going to eliminate that. And the authority authorizes the use of a uniform traffic ticket to notify an accused and commence judicial proceeding in the magistrate courts. So that's in at a later time. So they give you the ticket to come back later on, saying you're not getting locked up for it. So this eliminates the warrant, the bail, the bond. So another thing that happens on the side of the road is you are tried and convicted. So when you actually go to magistrate court or go to ticket court, you're going for an appeal. But read into it and find out what's going on. Read the magistrate and all that stuff. That's what you're going for because it's already been taken upon the road. So you're actually there trying to receive mercy to lesser the charge. Okay. We're right here too. The magistrate and circuit courts did not err My man challenges to the constitutional of section 56-120 as applied to him applies to all persons driving on the public roads of South Carolina, not just individuals engaged in commercial activities. No person except those expressly accepted in the article shall drive any motor vehicle upon a highway in the state unless such person has a valid motor vehicle driver's license issued to him under the provision of this article. And he's saying, that man, go on here with all the other stuff you talking about. If you're gonna be out here on these highways, go on get this stuff right, get your license. Okay, define a person as every national person. See second article annotated 5612, subsection 2. Define a motor vehicle as every vehicle which is self-propelled and every vehicle which is propelled by electronic power obtained from overhead trolley wires, not operated under rails. They've given you a description here, defining motor vehicles as every vehicle which is self-propelled, and every vehicle which is propelled by electronic power obtained from an overhead trolley's wires, but not operated upon rails, meaning that it ain't really on no train track. It's got wires up here and it's electronic, like old toys we used to have back in the day. And it'll shock you too. But anyway, further, uh, although my man has a constitutional right to travel, his right does not encompass the right to drive without a license. Rather, the state has the authority under the policing power to regulate drivers in the interstate of public safety and welfare. And this regulation does not impede the right to travel. So he's telling you here too that in all these cars and other stuff, they're not going to restrict you from traveling from state to state. They can't. They won't. But just if you are using an automobile, they can restrict the way that you operate out here. Get your license for the automobile to travel. You can go. They won't hinder that. Make passports for those that want to go outside other states. Okay. And they say it does not impede on the right to travel. Freedom to travel throughout the United States has long been recognized as a basic right under the Constitution. South Carolina State Highway Department versus whoever. A license to operate a motor vehicle is not a property right. A license to operate a motor vehicle is not a property right. This isn't your sovereign God-given right, what we talk about. It's not your horse that you feed, that you purchase with your money in your buggy. If you bought, built, or built your money, the things that you have in your own possession that are yours, that are not stolen, that are really yours, you can travel and go with. But all this other stuff where the trouble come in at. Okay. And this is the other thing I'm talking about, the interest of the public safety and welfare of the public. So you out here with no license, no insurance, no tags, no way of being able to reconcile or give remedy to an injured party if you were to injure them. So we can't have you out here recklessly like that. That's like having a drunk driver. Can't have you out here drunk driving and you can't control the automobile. It's not safe for nobody on the road, public, private, welfare, neither, because you're gonna run off the road and hit somebody's house. Okay, so there can be no doubt about right here. There can be no doubt that the legislatures, which under its policy powers has full authority in the interest of the public safety to prescribe conditions under which the privilege to operate a motor vehicle may be granted and upon which such privilege will be revoked, may make the violation of traffic regulations or other causes having to do with public safety the basis for the revocation of suspensions of a driver license. A state may require the regulations of such vehicles and license of their drivers. This is but an exercise of the policing power uniformly recognized as belonging to the states and essentially to the preservation of the health, safety, and comfort of their citizens. So people are say that they don't, the state or the government don't have any policing power. Do through other things to make rules and regulate into the common law or into the private. It's telling you there that they do have that right to do things when they're dealing with the public. And excuse me. A state law implementing that the right to travel when it actually deters such travel. When impeding traveling, it is primarily objective, or when it is using any classification which serves to penalize the exercise of that right. Recognizing the court had previously heard that burdens on a single code of transportation did not uh, implicate the right to interstate travel, and finding Miller did not have a fundamental right to drive. So they say he didn't have a right to drive. Due process, but here at number 3, due process were not violated by the state's failure to allege and prove he was engaging in transportation because only required that the state to prove a person drove a motor vehicle on a public highway in South Carolina without a driver license. The testimony at trial showed he drove his van on a public highway to a license checkpoint, a license checkpoint in that county without a valid South Carolina driver license. No person except those expressly exempted in this article shall drive any motor vehicle upon a highway in this state unless such person has a valid motor vehicle driver's license issued to him under the provision of this article. There you go. There you go. They tell you all the ways how to get your license and why, when, where. Stating a person is guilty of a misdemeanor when he or she drives a motor vehicle on a public highway or this state without a driver's license in a violation of section. Defining a motor vehicle as every vehicle which is self-propelled and every vehicle which is propelled by an electronic power obtained from overhead trolley wires do not operate under rails. Definition of person as every natural person. Dillon's argument that his First Amendment rights was violated is not preserved for review because Dillon did not raise this issue to the magistrate. So that's another thing to learn too. If you want to raise your constitutional right all the way up to the federal government where they hear about these constitutional obligations or rights being imposed upon, that it must be asserted in the beginning. And that's how you can get it there. And even though they did all this other stuff, you'll see that they explained and did all this other stuff to show you why he was not going to win, why he was wrong, and why the right to travel. Hopefully, you see before I get to the end of this down here, being RSN, the right to travel is a bunch of bullshit. And be careful with those that present it. And I hate to say it like that, but I'm gonna say it like that because there's a bunch, like I said, a bunch of people gonna lose a lot of valuable time that you can't get back behind not wanting to spend a little time on reading and studying. Okay, let's go with number 4, and we're gonna go and get out of here. Dillon arguments that his First Amendment rights were violated is not preserved for review because Dillon did not raise the issue to the magistrate courts for court or obtained a ruling. In order to preserve an issue of appeal, it must be raised to and ruled upon by the magistrate court. In other words, the magistrate court must be given an opportunity to resolve the issue before it is presented to the appellate court. So he should have raised that at court and said, I object. My constitutional rights give me this and this and this and this and this and this. And they have to say, well, we deny that. Then he got the right to appeal it. Or we respect that and we're not going to go forward with it. Or we hear that. Or we affirm that. Okay, you're right. But he didn't get none of that. So get it on record too. Okay. Did not okay. The Constitution issue, like most others, must be raised and the ruled upon by the trial court to be preserved for appeal. So in all of that, they affirm we decided the case without oral argument. They did it without even bringing him in or nobody else. They decided the case right here. And they said they affirmed everything the courts below him did. So I'm going to try to stop sharing if it'll let me. We're going to get out of here. We want to thank you for investing in yourself, coming in here, hanging in here with me. Hope you learned something. If you like it, if you agree with it, or you disagree with it, which is your right, your prerogative, like, share, comment, tell me about it. If you have any information outside of opinions, put it in the chat so we can search it and research it. We can all grow together. Um, just know that whatever you're doing out here in these processes, uh, educate yourself in whatever somebody's giving you and get the proof from them that they've done it and been successful in it. Not what they believe will work and what to do when it does come upon them. They still haven't been tested. It still has not been invented. They have not tried it themselves. Um, uh, my email, our email for In the Circle is In the Circle, INCIKRLE at gmail.com. You can contact us more about this, what we do, discuss it in our private setting, in our private meetings where we have uh, procedures and other things like that. I ain't gonna say procedures, but we have other processes that we can help educate you in this matter and other further matters, and help you educate yourself on how to actually operate in the private, even when you're in the public, and how to handle yourself accordingly and stay in honor at all times. So we'll get out of here. I like to say peace, love, wealth, and extreme prosperity to everyone, and see you next time.